working at Petco. I'm scared. I'm a little scared. But let's just do it. I'm gonna start with the cons because that's the juicy stuff. Look, I got my little notes here. It's really important. I gotta write my notes down. Okay, so let me just give you a little backstory. So I had just quit my awful job. With nothing lined up, naturally. But it was okay because I had savings. It wasn't the end of the world, but it still sucks to have expenses but no income, you know what I mean? So I was scrambling. There was one day I just went to like several different places around and just asked if they were hiring. Because I was like, oh, I gotta have a job. It feels so bad just like sitting around. But anyway, so I was going around the stores and Petco was the only store that said, yes, when can you come in for an interview? Which was a little bit of a red flag. And I found out later they had been chronically short-staffed. They needed people. There was somebody who didn't show up the day that I came in asking if they were hiring. So the manager was kind of like, yes, come in for an interview. And I was super excited because I was like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted something quick that I can start really soon. And it was great. So I came in for an interview the next day. And you know, I had always loved Petco as a kid, going into Petco and looking at the animals. I don't know if that was a thing that everybody did back in the day. When I worked there, I actually saw that parents brought their kids to Petco to like look at the animals, just like my parents had brought me to Petco to look at animals. It was kind of cute that the tradition's still going. But anyway, that was a little side story. But anyway, did the interview, started that same week, which was really exciting. And here we go. Here goes the cons. So the first thing that really stood out to me and really stressed me out was I had to learn the position super fast because they were so short-staffed. I got a little bit of training, but after the first day, it was kind of like, oh, you're on your own, you know it, which I only knew the bare minimum, the basics. Oh, by the way, I was a cashier person, a guest experience specialist. So most of the time I was up at the cash register, taking money, giving people their products, and off you go. I also had some other duties like spot cleaning the little small animal mammal cages. That was really cool. I'll tell you about that more later. And then collecting online orders. It was another part of my job. And then I had some other things like cleaning out the cricket bins sometimes and like inventory sometimes. Just a little bit of everything, more of the like product side of things though, not so much on the animal side. And I knew nothing about aquatics, nothing about fish. So that's kind of what I was. I was a cashier, pretty much. So I had to learn it very quickly. And there were, you know, when you start a job and there are just a lot of little things that you learn along the way and you kind of have to mess up first to understand them. Yeah, I hate that part. And it was really evident in this position since nobody was teaching me everything, which is not their fault. Like again, we were super short-staffed and they had their things to do and I had my thing to do. It was fine, but it was just a little stressful the first couple weeks. So yeah, like I said, I messed up a couple times. Let me tell you an example. This was really early on. I did not know that collecting online orders was part of my ongoing job. I was taught this, but it wasn't evident that it was my job as a cashier to collect online orders throughout the day. So I go in and I just do my little job, and then it comes to be like 3 p.m. and a manager is obviously a little upset with me. And I had no idea why. They were rushing around and collecting online orders, and it occurred to me that I was like, well, maybe I should have been doing that. So I go over to them and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that this was part of my job. Yeah, it was fine after that, but it was just very embarrassing because, well, I wasn't told that it was like an ongoing thing, but also they should have had to get it for me. I don't know. It was just so awkward. I hate that. I hate people having to do my job for me. So whatever. But that's okay, you live and you learn, and it was fine after that. It's just in the beginning that it's the worst, really. Also, because we were chronically short-staffed, there were many days where I just could not do everything well. Like for example, I would keep somebody on the phone on hold for way too long and they would hang up. Or they would be mad when I got back on the phone. Or somebody on the side would have just purchased crickets from me and I would be like, okay, I'll go get them for you in a second. And then a line forms for me, and so I can't step away from the cash register to go get the crickets for them, and they're standing there for like 15 minutes. Then I have to scramble and find somebody who can do it while I'm also checking people out. It's just a lot sometimes, and that was always super stressful when there were multiple things that I had to do at once and there were just not enough people to do it. That happened pretty much every single day, but it is okay. Every job's gonna be stressful in its own way, and that way wasn't the worst stress at a workplace, in my opinion. Food service, in my experience, has been way worse than this pet store job, which that's a whole nother story, but whatever. Another thing is, which might turn you completely away from this job, is that people would not pick up after their pets. There were so many times I was just walking through the store and I was like, oh, there's a puddle of pee, which there are cleaning stations around the store, which are really obvious, I think. Like there are paper towels, cleaning supplies, a trash can, all around the store, like little stations where the customer can pick it up. And some customers did clean up after their pet, but many times they did not. So it was up to me or somebody else who saw it to clean it up, which I don't mind. I used to do Rover. I don't know if you're familiar with Rover. I have a video on that actually that I'll put right here if you're interested. It's a dog walking, pet sitting website where you can connect with clients to walk their dog or visit their home to take care of their dog while they're away. I really liked it. It was a really, really nice side hustle that you can just kind of work whenever you want. And I had to clean up a lot of shat and pee in that job too, so it didn't really bother me all that much at Petco. On top of that, this job, also this may turn you away, you have to clean up a lot of shat in the little small animal mammal cages. I'm talking about rats, mice, hamsters, guinea pigs, ferrets, and birds. If you don't like cleaning up after animals and smelling animals, then that's probably not a good thing for you to be here. It's really not that bad, but it's just something to think about if you're really like, oh. Someone on Reddit, I think, describes Petco as a retail job with a lot more animal poop, which is very true. Also, so I've been talking about how this store has been short-staffed like for a very long time apparently, and it has gone through like 5 or 6 different store managers in the past year. The actual manager who hired me for my position left in the middle of when I was still working there. She just left. She was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I've heard from lower level managers that it is really rough for managers at Petco. It's not so bad for the employees like me, a cashier, but for the managers, Petco is apparently a terrible place to work. So that's just one thing. If you're trying to be a manager there, it might be a completely different experience than an employee who has way less responsibility. And yeah, because I didn't have that bad of a time. It was stressful in its own way, but that's like every job, so I didn't think much of it. And on top of that, it really, really depends on what kind of people you work with, which is also everywhere. And at this store in particular, the people there were so nice. I'm talking about the managers above me and the employees that I worked with, my coworkers. They were so nice, so understanding. It was like we were all on the same page. We all had the goal of just making it through the day, and we tried to make it as happy as possible. It seemed like they were really chill people. Never ever ever made me feel dumb or like, oh, I'm taking away your time if I asked them a question, because I had a lot of questions, and I did ask a lot of questions because I didn't want to get things wrong, and they were always super helpful and super understanding. So that is a big part, and that's just something you're gonna have to learn if you get the job and you start working there, because really it comes down to the people you work with, whether the job is worth it or not, to be honest, in my opinion. And that's actually why I'm sad that I had to leave, but it's also a good thing I had to leave because that was not my future. Petco is not my future. And honestly, I don't know if Petco even has a future because it seems like it's going down the drain. But anyway, oh, I had a couple more cons, just a minute. Okay, there's like one more con I have. So often there would be upset customers with grooming, which the grooming department is completely separate from the floor associates. Us on the floor have no idea what's going on in grooming and vice versa. Although grooming is a part of the store, so customers routinely would come up to me and ask like, hey, I don't see anyone in grooming, but I need to get my dog, or hey, I have an appointment, but I see nobody in there. Can you go see where they are? And I'm like, well, groomers are always having to go from grooming a dog on the table to communicating with customers outside of the grooming area. And so yeah, they probably see the customer, but they can't leave the table with the dog on it until they're done. That's just policy. They can't leave a dog on the table and be like, oh, let me go rush out to this customer real quick. And it was just really annoying because I didn't want to be the middleman, and I was often the middleman for an upset customer and the groomer. And then the groomer would get upset and then be like, hey, tell him this. And I'm like, no, please, it's not my job. But whatever. That was probably the most annoying because we have nothing to do with grooming, but the customers really wanted us to do something about it. It's okay, it'd be like that. So now let me get into the pros. Once again, the management at this particular store was a huge pro for me. They were super nice, super friendly, super understanding. And then on top of that, the playlist was pretty good. They played mainstream stuff most of the time, but I enjoyed it. And then customers were happy, I'd probably say 90 to 95% of the time, which I feel like is super rare in retail and food service, but I think it's because, now this is just my hypothesis, I think it's because the store reminded them of their pet, the pet who they love, and so they were just naturally in a good mood. Because I came across tons and tons of friendly customers who would make conversation or just tell me about their pet, and it was just a good time. You also get to learn a lot about animals and animal care when you're there. I went in knowing really nothing about any animal other than dogs, and even then not too much about dogs. Now I know a little bit about a lot of other animals, which is really cool. And then also I had the opportunity a couple of times to go to the vet. I'm not sure if that's routinely an employee's job or if it's mostly just a manager's job to go to the vet, because often animals get sick and it's company policy. I think you have to go to the vet within 24 hours of noticing that they're sick. That might be wrong, don't quote me on it, but whatever. So they went to the vet a lot, which I wish I could tell you guys more about the animal care side of Petco, but like I said, I didn't do much of that, so I'm not sure if they are bad at that. Although I've heard that a lot of animal abuse does happen in pet stores, so I wouldn't put it past Petco, although I can't speak much on it because I didn't really do anything with that. So yeah, I went to the vet a couple of times, and it's just, I really liked it because it's really easy money. You just drive somewhere and then drive back, and they pay you for your gas expense, which they overpaid the heck out of my gas expense. Like, the amount they paid me was like for a full tank of gas, and it really wasn't that far away, but I'll take it, give it to me. Oh, hold on. If you're still here, please hear me out. Wait, this is something I forgot. This was the worst part of the job by far. I hated this part. This is what made me want to leave sooner than later, to be honest, because they push you to be a salesman as the cashier. You have to push this thing called Vital Care Premier. It's a subscription, a monthly subscription service, and you push it for the customer to buy it because that's how Petco is going to stay afloat in the future. It's like $25 a month, and it's not worth it at all. And because I didn't believe in it, I could not get myself to try to convince a customer to get it because it was such a scam. The benefits you got from the subscription did not outweigh the $25 you had to pay per month. On top of all the expensive grooms and food and vet visits and toys and everything that goes into taking care of an animal, it's crazy. It is actually crazy. So I just kind of stopped talking about the Vital Care Premier subscription service after a while, but it was just so awkward because the managers would be like, hey, don't forget, we really got to push this because we got to get 10 a week, which I know it's not, they don't probably want to do it either, but I know that their bosses are telling them to tell us to sell it, which is kind of a messed up system because, like, why would you base the performance on the store on like a customer's opinion or preference to get or to not get a subscription service? I feel like they really just messed up there. They should just focus on their sales numbers. Apparently Petco corporate is very not with it, but it's okay. But that's it. That was the worst part of the job. I don't like being a salesman because it just feels so grimy. So I just stopped after a while, especially after I got a few nasty responses. I was like, girl, I don't care if you get it or not. This is just part of my job. It'd be like that. I don't know. I feel like I said way more cons than pros, which I probably did. But honestly, overall, working at Petco was not that bad. It was nice. It was nice in the sense that I enjoyed the people I worked with, and most of the customers were really cool. It was actually a pretty easy job at the end of the day. I was bored some of the time because it's really monotonous. And you know, I just don't like being bored either. Bored and stressed is a terrible combination. It was a little stressful at times, which is fine. A little bored at times, which is fine. And it paid okay. I mean, it paid well for a cashier job, but at least in this state, but it definitely was temporary and needed to be. I'm trying to get a better job. Petco was just a really short, I was only there for 2 months. It was a really short gig for me. I did learn a lot about the job, a lot about the company, and a lot about animals. And I don't know if I can say I recommend it or not, because it really just depends on your area and who manages your store. Because at the end of the day, it's that management that'll make it or break it for you. I would say if you worked at the Petco that I did, it's worth it. If you want a little temporary job, or if you really do want to move up in retail, I guess, or if you really love animals, then it might be a good choice. But I would say for most people, keep it very temporary. Don't stay there long. Just do it if you need to, or if you just like want a little easy cashier job. That's that. There are better places out there for sure. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This was so much fun to film. That's it. I'll see you guys later.